What's up, everybody? Welcome to the History Things podcast, first edition, History Iron Chef. Matt and I always talk about putting the titles on the line. We're not doing that tonight because we recognize we are way out of our league, off our turf, and definitely in some strange place for me because in my house, this is one place I am not in charge of. Mrs. McGuire has given the show permission to use the kitchen, but not abuse it tonight. So to help us through the first ever cooking show in the History Things podcast, we are once again joined by Miss Sarah Morgan from Cooking with the First Ladies. You follow her on Instagram, and if you're not already, shame on you and get to it. Pause this episode, go hit the like button. But Sarah, we caught up with you a while ago. It's great to see you again. How are you?
Good to see y'all too. I'm really good. Just been really busy and, doing a lot of different First Ladies things.
Anything towards this holiday season? Obviously we're sort of getting to the end of 2023 here. Anything to wind down the year? Anything our viewers should look out for in 2024 on deck that you want to share? Or are we keeping it a secret right now?
Hush, hush.
Well, for sure, the last Monday in October, I'll be doing Dolly Madison for the National First Ladies Library. And I'm going to be kind of talking also about like the founding era and the Revolutionary War and that sort of thing. So that's exciting. So that'll be my last live program for 2023 for them. And then I'll be back with 4 more First Ladies, which I have not decided the 4 that I want to do for 2024 yet. I'm also working on launching the website, my website. So hopefully that'll be going and, be able to do a little bit more with that and kind of YouTube stuff.
When you decide on who you're picking, for the 4 First Ladies, do you do the creative impulse thing? Like, here's what strikes me. I feel I want to tell this story. Or do you need like a little more runway? Because most things that Matt knows with me, I'm very impulsive, but there's a few things that I take my real good time with. So do you sort of, I don't know, you wait for the inspiration to strike before you pick your ladies?
Yeah, and also it is kind of impulsive as well. I'll usually kind of talk over different options with my best friend Rebecca because she's also into all the history things, and so she's helped me pick a lot. But sometimes I am a little bit impulsive about it, especially when it comes to some of the older First Ladies. It's just a little bit less information,
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to do somebody like Betty Ford. There's massive things, and it's not that people don't know about stuff about Abigail Adams and Dolly Madison. It's just a little bit harder to kind of put that program together. So I did do Abigail Adams last year, and the reason I even say it was impulsive because I love her is just because it was very difficult to research in comparison.
Sure. I'm still stuck on Mrs. Coolidge and her raccoons from the first time I hung out with you. Who knew? Not just cooking; they were just the First Ladies were so fascinating. So at the end of our chat last time, we launched an ambitious challenge to ourselves, and interestingly to you because you're going to have to be the guy, the Sherpa up the mountain for us today. We asked you to pick a few things that Edith Wilson, who we focused on towards the end of the episode as the First Lady we wanted to focus on. I guess I can double up on that. So we picked, 3 different things because, again, also ambitious and much like small children, we like to bite off maybe more than we can chew here on the podcast. So tell our listeners what we're going to be getting into on the show today and sort of why we're going to do it the way we're doing it.
All right. So I picked the 3 recipes. 2 of the recipes are specific to the Wilsons. So one of those is Edith Wilson's tea cakes. She actually, they have a lot of her actual recipes that they still have to this day. Some of them she actually wrote on scorecards during like their bridge games and then would kind of hand them out. So the tea cakes are her recipe specifically. Then we're also going to make a Georgia Kiss pudding. And that was President Wilson's favorite dessert. And he liked to eat that paired with some strawberry ice cream. And that particular recipe actually comes from Princeton University, where he went to school. And then finally, I kind of got into reading about food and World War I in relation to the Wilsons, and candy bars were kind of a big deal, chocolate and that sort of thing. So I came across one very strange candy bar recipe. It's the vegetable sandwich bar, and its slogan was, will not constipate.
Well, damn, what a slogan.
Yeah, I know. And I have a couple other cool candy bar things from that time period. They had some really interesting flavors and things that obviously they don't make those anymore today. So I think what we'll do is we can get started with our candy because we do have to freeze it for 30 minutes, and we're going to do the chocolate on a double boiler. So that'll take a minute to get going as well. And then we'll do the Georgia Kiss pudding. Because that does take about 30 minutes to bake. And then we'll finish up with our tea cakes, which only take about 10 minutes. So,
how much water do we put? So the way we are going to do a double boiler is we're going to do the bowl on top of the pot. How much water should we be putting in our pot?
You'll want to fill it up just enough so that it won't come up into the bowl or anything, but like so that it's touching the bottom of the bowl.
All right, perfect.
Fill your water up as close as you can so that it doesn't get in whatever you're using as your double boiler. I'm doing the 2-pan method.
All right, so we have the water on. The bowl boiler situation is activating. Boom! Baker's chocolate bars.
Boom! Easy.
This was an
so
odyssey,
far,
by
right?
the way, in the store. We took forever. Matt and I literally walked up and down this aisle, swore we could not find them, asked for help, and the person who helped us literally went, "They're here," and we were staring right at them. So
that's always how it happens when you can't find stuff at the store.
That's right.
So you've got 16 ounces total.
Yep.
4 bars.
Yep.
So you'll just take those and break them at least in half. And then just put them in your bowl and then get it boiling. And so another interesting candy bar though that they had a candy bar that was called the chicken dinner bar. They made that in like the 1920s type decade, and the wrapper had a picture of a roasted chicken on a dinner plate on it. And that kind of along with the vegetable sandwich bar, they kind of use candy bars as something that you could use as a meal replacement and to get your protein, etc. if you were low on money and low on time to eat. So quick energy, cheap calories, which of course they especially used for soldiers as well. So
that's what I was wondering, is this is really the super experimental phase of chocolate candy bars and things like that, because this industry is getting off the ground. So they're just kind of like, they're trying it, let's try this, let's try that. I was also musing at work recently with a guy that's associated with our show, and we were talking about what we were going to be doing. And I mentioned the vegetable sandwich bar, and he was like, what? And I said, honestly, aside from the constipation part, my brain says this is a good way to make sure the soldiers eat vegetables. Just like coat it in chocolate. And I wonder if there was any, because I know the chocolate will get you moving, right? But I just was wondering if it's like, I wonder if they're also like, hey, if we smother the vegetables in chocolate, they won't complain about it and it'll just be all good. But every single person has had the same reaction to vegetable chocolate bar. Oof.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird.
I'm terrified when we finish these today. Have you tried them before production here? Have you actually made and ate one?
I did, because they're like, not that I could find, there's no recipe for this out there. So right. I figured out how to do it ourselves, which is we're using those dehydrated vegetables because it seems similar to what they describe as being in this candy bar. So I did I did make them once before, several months ago, and they weren't terrible, but I don't know that they would be something that I would want to eat all the time by any means. I wouldn't really like suggest it to someone like, you got to try the vegetable sandwich bar, you have to. But you have to try it.
If on Halloween, Matt, you went to a door and they dropped a vegetable chocolate bar into your candy set, disappointed or jazzed?
If it's in a wrapper, I'd probably try it. If it's something that's homemade, I don't know if I would, honestly.
Oh my goodness. The only way we need is the big heat. We need the big heat on the History of Things podcast. Bring the righteous good big heat here on the show.
And one thing that you can do while we're waiting for the chocolate to get melty is you can take a cupcake pan.
We can do that. Yep.
And the wax paper. And you'll just kind of cut the wax paper in little squares and stick it down inside the cupcake pan.
All right.
And that's what we'll pour the chocolate into, and it just helps it not stick quite so bad.
All right, so let's cut some squares, Maddie B.
Yep.
How did you get them to stay all nice and perfectly in there?
You can put a little, I should have mentioned this, but I didn't think about it because my husband actually did this part for me. It's a little dollop of Crisco in the bottom, and then you can stick it. But if you just kind of have it in there, once we pour the chocolate in, it'll stay.
Excellent. So then this will look less cool as yours is right now until that moment. We are definitely professionals now. By the end of today, I would request that all of our listeners refer to us as Iron Chef.
No.
Chef Patrick and Chef Matthew. First full names.
Isn't this more baking, though, than...
Great British Bake Off. This is the Great History Bake Off.
Now, you got to be careful, though, because you don't want to, look like you know too much of how to do it, or else you might get roped into doing, cooking.
Oh, man. All right, Matt. Those are wee tiny, baby. Look how small the cute wax paper is. I did cut them weird. All right, so we've got our wax paper prepped.
Okay, and how's your chocolate going?
The chocolate is...
We're getting a little bit of melting towards the bottom, but not much.
So we had a malfunction of burner. We accidentally flipped it to single burner instead of double burner. And so we didn't apply the big heat as we know we need. So we're probably a couple minutes behind where we should be.
Yeah, it takes a minute. Once it gets going, it should go, because mine's going pretty good now.
Excellent.
Well, like I said, we didn't apply the big heat. We started on the little heat, and we're probably a few minutes behind.
So, Sarah, you were commenting on the wide variety of candy bars and things of that nature that you've come across with doing some of your research. I've found something similar with ice cream in the mid to late 19th century into the 20th century. There was all of this experimentation with savory flavors, as opposed to, we know ice cream today for sweet, obviously, but they were really doing a lot of experimentation with savory flavors as well. Have you run across that in some of your own research?
I didn't read too much about ice cream, but that's really interesting.
What's the savory flavor that they're talking
about? Yeah, what flavors were they doing?
They're doing things like vegetables and things of that nature, or like tea and stuff like that. All of these really...
I disrespect this. Yeah. Who are these people that want to take chocolate and ruin it, and ice cream and ruin it?
Yeah, exactly. And same with ice cream. It's like, experimentation is great, but at a certain point...
I saw an article in the news recently about America is falling out of love with ice cream. And I said, who have you polled? Who have you polled for this information? Because I am not. I am deeply in love with ice cream still. In fact, as this show is being recorded, the girls of the house are out getting ice cream. And I cannot wait for this chocolate milkshake handoff that's going to come in at some point during recording. Ice cream is where it's at.
Yeah, I don't know who they pulled for that either. That doesn't seem correct, in my opinion, but...
There it goes. Yeah, now we're starting to see some action here with the melt.
Good, yeah, once it gets going, it'll get going. Now they did have a tropical flavored candy bar that Hershey, I believe, is the people that made that, and they gave it to the soldiers in Vietnam for that one.
Really?
So, like a fruity candy bar, I guess.
Huh. I wonder if the intention there was to help with scurvy and malaria and things of that nature.
Maybe. I would hope that some of these recipes, somebody had some sort of intention.
Scurvy. That makes me think about an episode we did earlier this season on the podcast. I remember it. It was a bright day in August where we ventured off the coast of the Carolinas, and we finally talked about pirates on this podcast. If you haven't caught it, Sarah, you have to go back and listen to the episode we did on Blackbeard's blockade of Charleston Harbor, South Carolina, and his final battle at Ocracoke Inlet in 1718. It took us a long time to get to Gettysburg this season, and it was equally as long to get to piracy. We mentioned it, we flirted with it, we dabbled in it, we dabbled in piracy a little bit along the way. Not in that way, but in the sense that we told a few small stories. But we finally got to talking about Blackbeard himself, and that was a fun one. So anytime that gives me an in on this podcast to make a pirate reference, I do it. So scurvy away, matey.
That's true.
Except don't scurvy away.
Yeah,
that would be, I'd miss you. I'd miss you, lad. All right, how's our chocolate melt situation going?
It's still melting.
It's still melting?
It's melting well, but it's still in some pretty significant chunks.
What if you yell at it? Matt, do you know any bars? Can you spit hot fire at it?
Well, so while we are waiting, if you, we can go ahead and, if you want to get any of your ingredients together for the Georgia Kiss pudding.
Great call. So,
we can do that. So yeah, for that you're gonna need 4 cups of milk, and you can just measure those and put them directly into a pot, because we're gonna have to boil our milk as well.
Four cups of milk right into the pot.
4 cups of milk, and then we can go ahead and put this on the stove and go ahead and get it boiling.
So we're going to boil just the milk?
Just the milk. Yeah, we got to get it boiling first, and then we're going to add in 2 tablespoons of butter and 4 egg yolks and 1.5 cups of sugar. And then with your 4 eggs, you got to divide out your egg yolks and your egg whites.
Now, Sarah, when it comes to the chocolate, we want to turn this down a little bit once it's melted so that it stays smooth, I think the instructions were saying.
Yeah, you'll just want to be sure and stir it really good. And I put mine in a little Pyrex mixing bowl, measuring cup, to make it easier to pour.
Oh, that's a good idea.
So as soon as it's like melty and you've stirred it so it's smooth, then we're ready to pour.
I don't know how to do this. I'm actually really bad at this. So our producer says that he knows how to do this. So what I'm going to do is set our man up here.
What I always do is I crack the egg and then I do them back and forth.
I have no idea. So Parker's going to demonstrate that for us. So let me give you a big bowl, little bowls. I guess if you want to keep eating,
I only need one. Well, no, I guess I do need 2.
Yeah.
Okay, you want your whites in here?
Yolks here, whites there.
Hi, Parker.
Hi, how's it going, man?
All right. right, so I just turned the heat off on the chocolate because it is nice and melted up. So he's going to be transferring that into, oh, here, don't burn your finger, brother. Put on these super cool mittens. You should know about mittens. Matt knows a thing or two about mittens, being from the mitten in the United States, Michigan. Shout out to our listeners in Michigan. Boom.
Egg whites.
Egg whites.
Egg yellows and shells.
Egg yellows and shells. All right, can you take this shells to the trash and bring those back? Thank you so much. Parker does a lot for the show, on camera, off camera. Look out for a behind the scenes where Parker and I make some dough to prep for this episode. So we're going to have a pretty fun separate offering there. All right, so what are we doing next, Sarah? We waiting on that to deliver us the chocolate?
We are waiting, and as soon as that, we'll pour our chocolate, we'll top it with our dehydrated vegetables, and freeze it for about 30 minutes.
Excellent, excellent. So we'll get those ready.
And then you've got your 2 tablespoons of butter and your 1.5 cups of sugar and your 4 egg yolks.
We've got that. You said sugar.
1.5 cups, yep.
1.5 cups of sugar, right.
And then if you've got that milk on the stove, you just need to bring that to a boil, and then we're going to add in the rest of these items.
All right, it's going to boil in a minute here. It's beginning its pre-bubbles.
All right, am I pouring chocolate?
Yes, so you are, Matt, you are going to be the pourer of chocolates. So you'll be pouring a little bit into these. I would say start in this corner because these have the biggest drop top.
Sarah, do you advise how much chocolate in each of these?
Just a little bit, like kind of like a Reese cup type situation.
Okay.
So you don't need to fill it up. Just a little bit in each
Parker?
one. Maybe like 2 tablespoons-ish.
Okay.
Whites, yolks, sugar, milk is
And then you also need 3 tablespoons of cornstarch.
3 tablespoons of cornstarch.
So now, will your wife and kids try these chocolate bars, do you think?
Yes. Everybody I know personally is going to try these chocolate bars, and my hope is that a lot of them will say yes and let me film the entire experience so we can watch how people that are super unfamiliar with this just go from being posed the prospect of a chocolate bar with vegetables to actually getting one, to trying it and getting an honest reaction out of them.
I mean, who knows? We could be bringing these types of bars back,
Back, yeah.
All right, so we want what? 3 tablespoons of cornstarch, right?
Yes.
All right, so 1.
And then whenever you have all of that stuff, and the milk is boiling, we're just going to add that in and stir it up.
All right.
And we're going to put in everything but the cornstarch.
So everything but the cornstarch. Okay. Then we are going to audible real fast.
And so then once chocolate in the cups, I think I put on the recipe that you wanted to have about a cup, like a half a cup of the dehydrated veggies, but I just take them and just.
Whites are going in.
No, yellows.
Yellow.
Not the whites.
Yellows. Yolks are in.
Just the yolks.
Just the yolks. All right, so my milk was in, my sugar went in, my yolks went in.
And your butter.
And my what?
And the butter.
And the butter. The butter is in.
Okay, and then you're just gonna stir that up.
We're gonna stir it up.
Stir it.
I'm gonna go ahead and put my chocolate in the freezer. So after you put your veggies on top, that'll be.
And you said just kind of sprinkle them on, right?
Yes, just sprinkle it on as much or as little as you would like.
That's great.
I just sort of made sure that the whole top of the little chocolate cup was covered in and then you're going to kind of want to constantly be stirring this just because we don't want to scald it.
All right.
Let me use my fingers so I'm washing my hands.
Nope, that's me.
Okay, and then we're going to add in the cornstarch.
Add in the cornstarch.
Preheat your oven to 350.
350.
Okay, so we're just gonna wait for that to thicken up just a little bit. So what you'll need is a 5-cup baking dish.
Okay, so am I turning the heat off on this boiling milk?
No, keep it going until it thickens up, but turn it down. You don't want it to be like a rolling boil. And then it doesn't have to, it just needs to be at least, it's beautiful. They're beautiful.
Thank you.
It's great.
Am I putting these in the freezer or the fridge?
Freezer.
Freezer.
Okay.
And then you'll need a baking dish. You need at least one that holds 5 cups.
Oh, we're good. So we're gonna grease the baking dish, you said?
Yes.
I can do that.
So, mate, there you go.
And then is it kind of thickening up just a little bit?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, so we'll just keep that going for just a minute, and then when our ovens are ready to go, we will bake these. But first, we are going to do our topping for the pudding, and for that you'll need your 4 egg whites and 4 tablespoons of sugar.
So egg whites right there.
And a mixer.
We have our mixer. So actually, why don't you leave those over there, Maddie B? And then we need, how much did you say sugar?
4 tablespoons.
4 tablespoons of sugar.
Mm-hmm. And what you'll do, we are going to put our egg whites into the mixer, and then we're going to beat them until they kind of start forming little white peaks.
All right.
And once that starts to happen, then we're going to slowly add in the sugar.
How would you describe the little white, was it peaks that you called them?
Sorry?
How would you describe what we're looking for once we start mixing the eggs?
What's it going to look like?
Yeah.
It's going to look like real fluffy, like almost like whipped cream. So you're going to need it to go a little bit more than this.
All right, we're right there. We're so close.
And so then if you are close, then start slowly mixing in the sugar.
Start mixing in the sugar, got it.
All right, so Matt's mixing in the sugar. All right, so the sugar is in, we are mixing.
And then you'll just take that milk mixture from the stove and put that in your dish that we're gonna bake it in.
Okay.
Is that the grease dish?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I've got the grease dish right here.
I'm not sure if that's how it's supposed to look or not, but I am excited nonetheless. Ours kind of has like it looks like breading crumbs in there.
Huh?
I said ours is probably not nearly as clean looking as yours is.
Oh no, it looks great. It looks great.
Yes.
It looks good.
Woo. All right. So we're in our baking dish now. We're all wrestling with our mixers. All right. So we're all mixed up there. We're definitely all mixed up here on the History Things podcast.
And what you're going to do with the egg whites is you're going to put that on top.
All right.
As a drizzle or just slap it in?
Just pour it right on top. And normally these would want to be like stiffer, almost like a meringue, but it'll work. And then we're just going to bake it for 30 minutes.
Matt, you need to have a fair amount of faith.
I have faith.
Here on the History Things podcast.
So I keep getting into the chocolate.
Yeah. We'll have no chocolate left to bake because Matt will have absolutely eaten all of it. All right, so we're going in the oven. All right. Go ahead. Alexa, set a timer for 30 minutes.
30 minutes, starting now.
Jeff Bezos does not sponsor the History Things podcast. We are again broadcasting from my personal kitchen. So when in Rome, take advantage of the weird device that lives in my kitchen and listens to everything I say.
It is creepy. I'm like, I don't know.
We love it, but we totally acknowledge that it is awkward and likely spying on us.
Spying.
Good thing that outside of the History Things podcast, we are very uninteresting people in real life. My wife is a fascinating person, but I am just a hobbit that likes to hang out in this hobbit hole. And so Alexa's probably learning absolutely dilly about me.
Yeah, I'd be probably pretty boring myself.
Yeah, I don't think so. You have a very cool thing you do, and I know that it takes a lot of time to prepare for it. So we started following you as fans for a while before we reached out and said, hey, you got to get on our show. So I'm imagining that you put a fair amount of your personal time into this, which you have a family, so respect to you for being able to do that. It's like the extra gear, right? Sometimes you click into it and go.
Yeah, but it's like a, history. That's what I went to school for. And, so like doing the research part of it is so fun to me. The actual, presenting and being the live, sometimes that is a little stressful. So really, honestly, it's kudos to my family for putting up with me in the days leading up to that, because I'm not always the happiest person because I'm just kind of nervous, but, it's just been such a cool little project to do, but
well, that's why we're grateful that you joined us on our cool little project, and we're all just kind of winging this experience together. And obviously, a shout out to your family for supporting you and helping us, especially through the weird audio issues we couldn't handle earlier at the beginning of this. I'm just going to do that. Enjoy that. I have been outside all day, and weirdly, the last thing I want is really thick chocolate right now. So I'm going to wait for it to get cold. And everybody that knows me knows I love vegetables, so I'm super excited to snap into that Slim Jim, so to speak. All right, so at this point now, we've definitely mangled the kitchen, and I feel like we're about to do some more mangling. I feel like the dough is about to come out, and we're doing that, or are we still in something else mode?
That dough, we'll just let all of this happen. Then I know we had to pre-make this because it has to chill for 4 hours. And so you don't want to make a second batch of dough? I'll just make a second batch of dough to show, or do you guys want to make it?
We are down to make a second batch of dough because, as we said, we have a ton of our friends who have been curious about this project. We're going to force food upon so many people between his top secret site, the fort I work at, the network that is associated there. A lot of people have no idea what is coming. They're about to get pudding and tea cakes and sandwich bars. And if they don't want it, this is America. We're going to shock and awe it to you. You're getting the chocolate bar.
That you're doing
no worries. We're gonna make some dough with you, Sarah. All right. So let's get Let's get the flour out here. Now, when we made this dough last night, Parker and I were definitely struggling mentally with the fact that there was no water on this list. And in a dough, like we're like, what? Like, how is this? Because we found it getting very, like my mixer, my KitchenAid is a throwback mixer. I guess it's been in the family for a long time. And at one point the motor was like, geez, what is this? Is this a very thick dough?
It is a very thick dough. If yours, though, is a little too crumbly, you might add in a little bit more melted butter.
All right, we will definitely have to do that because ours started to get a little crumbly after refrigeration. So what we'll do is, how much, I have this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 6 tablespoons left on this stick. How many should I use right for the melting?
Let me see your dough.
Oh, man.
Okay, probably 3 tablespoons. Melt it first and add that in, and then see where it's at, and then maybe you're gonna have to use the extra 3.
All right, sounds good. So we're gonna be going back to the mixer, it sounds like, in a minute with the melted butter.
Yes.
All right, perfect. We can get that ready. Go ahead and rinse that real quick, Maddie B. I'm gonna cut apart some butter here.
Are you going to fix up your dough first?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Are you gonna do your butter for your dough that you made yesterday first?
Yeah, I'm just gonna microwave that real fast and get it melted up.
Okay, cool.
And then while I'm sort of working that back out, I'm gonna have Matt and you work out getting the ingredients for the dough together.
Okay, sounds good.
Cool.
A stick of butter.
Yep.
Also want to melt that a little.
Little bit.
And then two cups of brown sugar.
Okay. 2 full cups of brown sugar.
What?
2 full cups.
2 cups. And 5 eggs.
Are we putting this into one thing? So that
you can put your melted butter and brown sugar together, but we're gonna need the mixer.
I will be done in 2 seconds. Potentially.
And then in a second bowl, you can also, in that bowl, put the 5 eggs and the baking powder, salt, and nutmeg in there as well. Which I am really glad that you said 5 eggs out loud, because I had actually forgotten to have that step ready for this second batch. And then you're going to need 8 cups of flour.
Yeah. That's what we were saying. We were like 8 cups.
I know, it's a lot. See, but you'll have a lot of tea cakes to share.
That's right.
now, Sarah, with the eggs, these are full eggs, not divided?
Not divided, no, just simple.
Okay. Where did the eggs go?
They are right in front of you.
Oh. Hey,
Don't worry, bro.
There's 5 too. Huzzah.
I got you.
And also on your mixer, you're using a dough hook.
For the yeah, right now we are.
The paddle, okay. You know, this is why I have 2 mixers.
Ah, you know what? I'm glad Mrs. McGuire is out of the house right now, because I guarantee you there will be a full-throated endorsement from the peanut gallery right now.
Alrighty, so I've got my 5 eggs. What else am I throwing in with the eggs?
You can put the baking powder, a teaspoon of baking powder, a teaspoon of salt, and a teaspoon of nutmeg.
A baking powder?
Excuse me?
Did adding that extra melted butter help that dough a little bit?
Yes, and I'm about to just add one little bit more, and we'll be done.
I've got eggs, too much baking powder, or too much salt, and the right amount of baking powder and nutmeg all in one thing.
Okay, so over at the mixer, you can take the brown sugar and the butter, and we'll start mixing that up. You need 1/4 cup of melted butter for this, which is half a stick.
Right.
Cool.
And so you'll just start mixing that up, and then once it's kind of all mixed in together pretty good, then you'll just add in the egg with the salt and all that business in there.
All right.
And you're gonna want to do more than half a stick of butter if your dough, because then you won't have to fix it the next time. So you might do like 1.5 sticks.
Got it. You don't got to tell me twice to add in more butter.
And then once you have all of the liquids in, then you're just gonna slowly start adding in the flour.
Okay. So we need to get a ton of flour. All right, Sarah, before we add in flour, this the eggs, salt, powder, and nutmeg, is this what we're going to be adding into the mix before we add the flour?
Yes.
All right, perfect.
So we were ready to go ahead and add this.
Add that, and then I will get us a bunch of flour.
All right, here we go.
We're doing 8 cups of flour.
And you're just gonna slowly mix that in.
Okay.
But you should be a pro at this because y'all made it yesterday.
Yeah, yesterday was also an amateur production. We had a lot of laughs. We made a big mess. We ended it with, "Dear God, I hope we do this right tomorrow." What I'm excited about, Sarah, is that we're right on track with yesterday, which means we're consistent, if nothing else, here on the podcast. The consistency is the other half of the battle. That's what G.I. Joe doesn't tell you about. All right, so slowly do one at a time. We're going to do 8 of these. If you need more flour, there should be a bunch up there.
And then basically that's your dough. If it's still really crumbly, just add in a little bit of extra melted butter.
Cool. So should I put flour down on my counter?
Yep, you're gonna wanna dust a little flour on your surface. And then, do you have a rolling pin? Oh, perfect.
Ready to rock. Yes.
So that's just what we're gonna do. We're just pull them out and then cut them out with whatever shape cookie cutter you would like.
All right.
Oh, it likes that.
It did?
Yeah, it did. Let's see. Came back alive again.
How thick are these supposed to be when we press it? 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch?
I do it about 1/2 inch. Kind of classic cookie.
All right. So we are going to go with classic circle. When I make sugar cookies, sometimes I just don't want them to be holiday themed. You know, if I want some sugar cookies, say in, I don't know, July, whatever. So a long time ago, I was taught that you can use mason jar caps just to make circular cookies.
There you go.
So that's what we are going to do today.
My cookie cutter is, you really can't tell, but this is a Hanukkah cookie cutter, but it's really just looks like a star. So
Mazel tov. Let's go. Right here in July. That's when behind the scenes. That's when we're really recording this. So you guys are enjoying this at the end of the year, but we filmed this midsummer, so prime holiday season, obviously. Are we putting these? Okay, so Matt, either underneath in the bottom there or directly in the broiler underneath the stove or sorry, the oven.
Right.
There will be a
Cookie sheet.
Should be.
There we go.
All right.
and then yeah, you'll just want to grease that pan just a little bit.
Grease it.
Grease it a little bit.
And her recipe says that you would want to serve these with a fruit or a flavorful ice cream.
That sounds great.
So it seems to me that the Wilsons, though, they were fans of ice cream. So going back to your ice cream story from earlier, I don't think that they would agree with America's opinions on ice cream.
That's right.
Personally.
As I said, I don't have much social rage, but I had one right there. I said, how dare you? Who have you polled that said they hate ice cream? I don't know. When you fall out of love with something, do you do it neutrally? No. Oh, don't get me started. I just want ice cream. Sarah, have you ever made ice cream on Cooking with the First Ladies?
I have never made it on my cooking stuff, but I have made it before.
Is it hard to make? Is it hard to make?
Not really. It's just time consuming. It was really more like my mom and grandparents that would make it. They have like one of those like ice cream, like old fashioned looking ice cream churns.
Everything on it.
But it's absolutely amazing. Homemade ice cream is.
I don't know. Let's what did you look under the in the drawer under the oven? See if there's another one in there.
There actually is a smaller one.
Yeah, go ahead and utilize that as well. Alexa, how much time is left on my time?
You have 5 minutes and 20 seconds left on your 30-minute time.
All right, so we got about 5 minutes to go on our pudding. Now, you Pink Floyd fans out there will know that we obviously cannot eat this pudding until we have had our meat. I honestly was like, am I going to do it?
Yeah,
I did it. All right. I'm honestly much happier with the tea cakes that I'm putting on right now over the ones I started most of this pan with.
Are we putting these right into the oven?
We are going to wait until we have our pan ready, and then I believe that will be the case. Now, the oven for this have to be at 350 or at 375?
375. So yeah, we'll have to wait for the pudding to come out.
No worries. We're very close to that anyway. Matt, you have the mittens on standby?
Yep.
Matt,
yeah.
In your phone, do you have the mitten on standby? Can you call home and receive reinforcements from the mitten at any moment?
Definitely call home. I don't know if they would be here any minute, though.
Will Michigan answer the call?
Michigan.
And you also might check your chocolates because mine are ready to go.
All right.
Yes, ours should be ready. We're on the right time bracket.
Now, did these grow? Did these rise a lot? Should I leave some space on the rack?
Yeah, they'll rise a little bit.
All right, so we're just gonna go 2 across them. All right.
They're my chocolates.
Hey, those look awesome. Matt's gonna do a little less magical presenting of ours, but
Beautiful.
Yeah,
Ta-da.
I'm fairly pleased with how they turned out.
oh man. All right, so we will work on the rest of the dough later. We have our cookie sheets, our baking sheets filled up.
Okay. And now
So-
you're gonna take just a little bit of sugar and you're just gonna kind of like sprinkle the tops.
All right, so actually, can you give me one of those back, please, Maddie B?
Mine kind of exploded a little bit, so I hope y'all didn't, but mine kind of exploded a little bit. My pudding also, it needs to be kind of brown on top.
It is definitely that. It's really liquidy. Is it supposed to be?
I don't think so.
Uh-oh. Well, let's see if it thickens up. Let's just leave it. No, let's just leave it on top there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see
All
what
right, so we're going
happens.
to go ahead and put our tea cakes in now. Yeah, what's that smoke?
Something's happening in here.
Flour burn.
Yeah, it's done.
I do not want a visit from the town mayor / fire department / town mechanic here in the small town. Not a joke. Alexa, stop. For those of you who are hip to the small town I live in, literally the mayor, the fire department, the town mechanic are all one person or 2 people in the same family. I live in some weird country Hallmark story. I kid you not. But we don't want them to come and hang out at the podcast tonight because they would come as the fire department. Who knew Matt's in the chocolate again? Maddie B in the chocolate. Who knew that flour on the oven would smoke so much? All right, so we might have botched the pudding.
We
Not
might
gonna lie.
have.
Not feeling
We
too
might have.
pudding.
I don't know.
Well, so here's what we will do on our end. If it is botched, Matt and I will do this in post and figure out a way to show our viewers that we can actually accomplish this.
I think it just needs to thicken up.
All right, maybe it's thickening. Matt says it's thickening potentially.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed. Fingers
Yeah.
crossed.
And it's not pure liquid. It's trying to thicken up. So we're getting there.
All right, well, we'll let that ride for a little bit. We'll come back to it. All right, so let's talk a little bit about these. Now, were these recipes that were really hard to find? Were these readily, like, are these something like the tea cakes, right? Is this something that if you went to the Wilson White House, friend, state visit, is this something you are definitely going to be coming across with Edith in charge of, I guess, hosting?
You probably would. It was one of her recipes. It's in her handwriting actually. So I actually got the recipe itself from the President Woodrow Wilson house. So that's where the recipe came from, and so it was one of her personal recipes. So I would assume that they would serve something like that at the White House. But of course, the Wilsons did very strictly try to follow rationing and different things. So she didn't really entertain or host that much during her time in the White House, just because of the war, and they really tried to stand with the Americans and whatnot, which is kind of like she was that precursor to Eleanor Roosevelt and how Eleanor kind of did that same thing during World War II. But I mean, she had things like wheatless Mondays and meatless Mondays,
Right.
and they really tried to be as kind of cost effective as possible. They also had the sheep that lived on the White House lawn.
That's right. That's the way to keep your grass short. Get sheep, get goat. They'll eat all the grass for you.
Absolutely. That was one thing that they talked about with the sheep was they did sell the wool to make money for the war efforts, but also they cut down on landscape costs because the sheep were taking care of the grass.
I'm sure of that.
I want to ask, I feel like it's a silly question, and it likely is. Is the absence of water in this dough recipe a rationing decision? Or, like, I'm super unfamiliar with baking, but tea cakes, like, I feel like, though, when I make a dough for a lot of things, it involves water. It's like one of the basics.
Yeah.
What's with the absence of water in this dough?
You know, that's an absolutely great question. I didn't really question it at all, but that is a great one. So I'm not really sure. It's definitely not the only dough I've ever made that doesn't really have water in it. But I don't think that would have been a rationing decision at all.
Do you find in the absence of water, like, we used a lot of butter to get that kind of, like, do you find you do things like that when there's no water?
Yeah.
You're adding water,
Yeah, that you're definitely either going to have to use more. I'm not really sure sometimes with recipes when you follow it exactly, and then, you know, it's like the dough's not, you know, it's all chunky and different things, so then you have to add in like an oil or more butter, whatever liquid that you're using, you know, to fix the dough. So I'm always like curious, like when they made this recipe that she wrote down, what did they do? Why did they not then just go back and say, you know what, it's not half a stick of butter, it's 2 sticks of butter?
Do you find that you, the baker that you are, the chef, the kitchen, like however you describe yourself, right? Do you find yourself going like, here's what I know and it doesn't jive with this? And like, I find that sort of audibling flex, like, I feel like I would be driven mad. I as a historian, right, when we do things militarily in recreation land, we want to do it exactly as they did it. So we see it written down in a manual of arms. And so we don't really interpret it any differently than as it says. But like, I was struggling. Do you find yourself sort of at odds with that? Like, these two roads don't mean a lot.
Yes and no. Sometimes, but prior to really starting all of this, I cooked, but I didn't really cook a lot. I did on a very small scale. And this was just this like really interesting way to go about learning about the First Ladies and doing all that. So, but since that I started the project back in like 2019-ish, I have found that because I've done so many recipes now that I do find like that can't work that way, or, you know, not understanding why they're not doing it a certain way. And I also too try to do it like how they would do it as much as possible. I just recently presented Florence Harding, and one of her recipes said that she used a wooden spoon. So I specifically used a wooden spoon, even though like using a mixer would have been way easier. So sometimes some things like that, but I do try to be authentic to it.
Good. That makes
one of the
sense.
hardest things about recipes, especially of course the older recipes, is translating their wording into what works today. So, you know, exactly what is a dash of this and you know, so a lot of it's written out, just, you know, you should already just know how to make this, you know, sort of, you know, like any of my grandmother's recipes.
I was literally getting ready to say this has grandma vibes, where they don't tell you specifics, they just make it amazing by adding a dash of everything.
Yep.
Now, Sarah, in regards to your research and the hands-on history that you have been doing over the years, we have made a heck of a mess here in this kitchen, working on these 3 small recipes. Do you ever find, and this is far beyond just Edith Wilson, but any of the First Ladies or any of the recipes you've worked with, notes or comments or anything to that extent, like, wow, this didn't work, or I'm going to try this variation, that sort of thing?
Or this destroyed my kitchen.
Or this, I didn't think they'd mention that one, but...
Not really, not so much. And some of the First Ladies that really did cook, they didn't really cook in the White House, so there's not a ton of information about a lot of their cooking habits beyond some of them like to cook, most of them like to manage the kitchen. So there's some things out there like about that, like that they would come in and be like, no, you're not doing it that way. Like tell the chef, you know, no, we're not doing it that way, we're going to do it this way. sort of thing, but I really haven't seen anything specifically related to that.
I wonder if I would be allowed to manage this kitchen.
Yeah, right.
I highly doubt it. All right. So
real quick, how long are the tea cakes supposed to be?
we've got a timer going already.
10
We got one.
10
I
minutes.
just realized we hadn't verbally set one, and I kind of did the math. So we got somewhere about 20-ish minutes left on our timer.
Okay.
Tea cakes are only 10 minutes.
Tea cake's only 10 minutes. So
So not 20.
Not 20.
All
Not
right.
20.
Oh, they're looking nice though.
they're looking pretty nice. So all right. So let's do this. About 10 minutes. You say they take about, so they should be done.
Yep.
Yeah.
Should be about done. So let's go ahead and slide our pudding that isn't. Go ahead and pull these out. I don't know why I thought those were 30 minutes. I'm a silly boy.
That was
Those
the
actually look
pudding.
kind of banging.
They look great. Now, do they need to, other than being piping hot, do they need to rest or anything like that, Sarah?
Not really. No, you
Okay.
can go ahead and take them off and put them on a cooling rack or whatever you might have.
We're gonna put a couple on a plate so we can cool them and get to them in a few minutes. Matt, I'll hand you those. And then we're gonna try these chocolate bars. I am super glad that we went to this timer conversation because I don't know what made me think that this was a 30-minute cooking. And I definitely leaned out of the frame to Parker and was like, "Hey, bud, can you set a timer for 22 minutes?" He's like, "Yeah, we knocked it out." And then, wow, very wrong. I am super excited to eat this vegetable chocolate bar.
The tea cakes smell really good.
I feel like this is the thing we did right. Like really, I mean, these look right too, but the tea cakes, I feel like we got these. Now we had to do some research because nutmeg is a very misleading ingredient name for a person like me who has tree nut allergies, right? So like I am allergic to almonds and walnuts and all sorts of fun things that other people like to eat. I can't have them. They'll freaking kill me.
Literally.
Literally. And so we had to literally look up once we saw it. I was like, nutmeg is not a tree nut at all. So these tea cakes should not take old Pat McGuire down. But I was like, my entire life, I've said, no, nutmeg, I'm allergic to it. And my wife stood here and was like, no, you're not. She was right.
Hey, that's just, learn something new.
Absolutely.
Right there.
Was the wax paper your idea? Because that was brilliant. These little guys pop right out.
It was not my idea. That was my wonderful husband who.
See, I thought awesome.
Yeah.
I'm glad to know that we're somewhat helpful in the kitchen.
He's very helpful. I mean, not only will he assist in eating the food, but I mean, he usually always does the dishes.
There you go.
I mean,
that is 100% the penance that this guy and this guy have to do when this production is over tonight.
Totally.
Is we have to put the kitchen back exactly how you saw it at the beginning of the show here. All right, Matt.
Yes.
Are you ready to eat
Cheers, dude.
vegetable chocolate bars here
all
on
right.
the podcast?
Virtual cheers.
Cheers for cheers.
Cheers. I love the chocolate. Not gonna lie.
It's weird, right?
Yeah, it's weird.
Got a heck of a lot of crunch.
You know, there's a part of me that wants to say I'd rather face the trenches, but I know that's absurd.
It is.
But I feel like Willy Wonka himself devised these because these are straight weird, and that is obviously something the Wonka man will do. Devise a chocolate bar filled with vegetables. These schnozberries do not taste like schnozberries. You know what I mean? All right.
It will not.
I cannot wait to bring these to so many different people. I'm just like, here. Now, do you recommend, because this is good chocolate, kind of freezing them again to keep them kind of in a homeostasis, or kind of just leave them out?
I would probably at least recommend putting them in the refrigerator, but
All right, so
keep them in the freezer.
All right, so we will refrigerate these in a few moments here, and then we are going to get to tea cakes. So these really hot still. They are kind of piping hot, as you refer to it.
Sarah, do you have any vegetable taste in yours? Because all I'm tasting is chocolate. It's real crunchy because of the dehydrated vegetables, but.
Mm-hmm.
No, I got.
Oh, no, there's a little bit.
I got a healthy dose of vegetable.
It's a little bit of an aftertaste of vegetable.
It's exactly an aftertaste.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
There it is. Definitely. You gonna make it there, big guy?
Yeah.
Do you have tea cakes over there, Sarah? Excellent.
I do.
Let's try those too.
Probably a little less weird.
Cheers.
To you.
Cheers.
Cheers, buddy.
Cheers. Cookie clink.
Cookie clink. I like that.
These are bomb. These are so good.
Yeah, they're kind of just like a little, kind
These
of
are
almost
awesome.
like a cake consistency cookie.
Yeah. I really like those.
So you're probably going to have to show us the pudding because we're going to bring ours over in a minute. But I'm pretty sure we crashed and burned on Georgia Kiss pudding. Let me behind the scenes check it here real fast. Oh, definitely a little runnier than it probably should be, but we're probably not super far off.
Yeah, mine. I'm not really sure what happened, but mine didn't really totally set up either. So mine's pretty liquidy, honestly.
Do you think we should cook it longer?
That's probably what I would suggest to try to do.
Because the top of it is starting to look awesome.
Yeah,
That's
the top
pretty
on mine
stuff.
looks really good too. But it's very liquidy on the inside. But
Yeah, that's pretty. I like that color.
So let's do this, Matt. Can you open the oven here real fast? Since we still I got it. Just go ahead and open the oven for me, please. Thank you. Do. All right.
What? 375.
other than that, I'm not really sure why it didn't set up. So.
Well, we're going to experiment with it. Obviously, we won't keep it for the entirety of that experimentation, but this was a very exciting broadcast. How many tea cakes? I guess it boils down to the size of the cookie cutter, right? I was about to ask, how many would you expect to come out of this this amount of dough that we made? But we could make it one big cookie if we got the right cutter.
Yeah, you could. I mean, you could even make them in little cookie balls if you wanted to. It's just, but I'm going to say that I got about 12. I'd say you could probably do about 3 dozen, maybe.
Nice. What makes this a tea cake and not a cookie?
Yeah, that's a good question, Pat. This does strike me as very cookie.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? That's a really good question, but I would just think of tea cakes as they call them tea cakes, but they are like cookies, I guess.
Do you dip these in tea?
Yeah, you can. These would be served at like a tea party type thing or something like that. Is always what I think about with tea cakes.
Matt, when this wraps, I'm making tea. We're gonna do a proper party.
Okay.
Excellent. Well, I am thoroughly pleased with how this went. Obviously, behind the scenes, we were pretty much like, let's just do it. Let's just see what happens. And I had a ton of fun. The weird audio at the beginning. Who cares? I had a great time. This was definitely a good way to experience history in a way that I don't normally get to, right? Doing some cool things at work.
Hands-on history.
But most of what we do revolves around the dirty business of warfare. And today was a lot of fun getting into the dirty business of putting flour all over the kitchen here at the History Things podcast. So Sarah, thank you so very much for joining us. Tell our listeners before we get out of here, once again, where they can follow along with you and all the work that you do.
Mostly, until I get my website up, but it is my Instagram, which is @CookingWithTheFirstLadies. And then all of my previous videos and live programs are on the National First Ladies Library YouTube channel.
Awesome. Well, we'll direct all our listeners there. This is obviously going to be available on our YouTube channel just by searching the History Things podcast. So for those who want links, we'll attach them in the show notes. We'll include them in the video notes, and we'll obviously put the text on the bottom of the screen here. Sarah, thank you so much for hanging out with us in the first episode, talking about what you do, talking about some of your favorite First Lady stories, and obviously Miss Edith Wilson, the first female president potentially in U.S. history. We did spend some time talking about that. Absolutely. So thank you so very much. So shout out to Mr. Morgan for helping us out. Thank you for helping this production get off the ground. And to all of our listeners for following along in the chaos that was this episode. We appreciate you. For Matt Waters, I'm Pat McGuire. This is the History Things podcast, and we'll catch you all later.
Have a good night.